Hi, tonight is another episode of Meet the Author, and we have novelist Joe Vojt. Joe wrote, "I enjoy writing because this allows the creativity of the mind to exercise its true purpose. Novels, short stories, and plays reach out and make connections across the board. Novels are my true expressions of another life. Reaching from the subconscious teaches mankind about the hidden powers. The mind has no limit about fear and failure. It covers all the problems of nature, but controls the event." Welcome, Joe.
Nice to get together with you. It's an honor for me.
Well, I'm expecting an interesting program tonight. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into writing novels?
Well, it's actually started way back in 1950s. I used to write the little notes from school and so forth. And I had a hard time with the language for a while because of my background. So I had to go through a lot of hard times of how to use the words properly. But what you do, you go over and over till you get it right. Mm-hmm. And it just progressed from short stories to longer stories and novels. It all became gradual. I used to write everything I can think of short stories, maybe 3 or 4 pages, and send them out, see if I can get them published. Mm-hmm. And
at what age was this?
I would say it started like maybe in the 20s.
So it was before your professional career or after or during?
The professional, my career as a writer, gradually, it grew gradually. In other words, mm-hmm. It wasn't the whole idea was to get educated, get married and have children and all mm-hmm. that, but you need the responsibility. And at that point, money was an issue also. Mm-hmm. And money in an author's viewpoint was never there in my time. Mm-hmm. So I used it as a building block of what I can do later on. Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little about, you said you served in the Vietnam War. Did I get that right? You worked at the time of the Vietnam War as the...
I wasn't in Vietnam. I was a Vietnam era. Mm-hmm. In other words, at the very beginning, they classified it in the 1960s. That's when I was in SAC, Strategic Air Command, on the B-52s.
I don't know if anyone heard that, Strategic Air Command on the B-52s, okay.
Right. I worked for 3 years, mm-hmm. and I was, at that point, that when Vietnam started, that's how they got connected. Mm-hmm. So that's how I became a part of it. And 61 was when all the trouble were with Cuba.
And so you were involved with Strategic Air Command.
Right.
So that sort of like puts you in space, or at least in the air, right, in the other atmosphere. And you're writing about science fiction novels.
Right.
So how did you start writing science fiction novels, and what did your profession, your work experience, working with things having to do with aeronautics, I would say.
Right.
What did that have to do with your books?
Well, see, a lot of the information, if you look at the technical part of space as an example, and measuring space and understanding what you see through in the sky as an example. And people don't realize what's out there. Mm-hmm. And my interest became more and more targeted toward trying to understand it. Mm-hmm. And when you work on space programs, there are certain criteria that's mandated that you know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of it that started it, because I felt, hey, this is the way it should be. How can I use that data and make it a science fiction story?
Okay, very good.
Because, and lately, when we talk about the meteorites, my whole concept on the novel, Enduring Prophecy, and
Well, we didn't say what the name of the novels were, so maybe we should say that. Take a little break and say what the name of your novels are.
Right.
And then continue. So what did you have it right here?
Yeah, we have, there are 4 years, okay? Enduring Prophecy. That's the last one that hasn't come out yet. The other 3 are out. They're all emailed.
Let me hold that. Hold that up for the viewers.
Right. This was the first one here. Okay.
And there's a reason why we just have the labels and not the book, the covers, because these books, Joe decided to go green.
Right.
And these books are on Amazon.com. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but they're ebooks.
Right. And just for interest, all those covers are my photography.
Okay. Very nice.
I use that concept to make it realistic to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was important.
Especially like this one.
Right. That's the first one. That's what started it. So it's
We'll put that down so you can see a little bit better. Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting. What made it interesting is that meteorites, how I came about the whole novel concept, and it started in 1800. I read so much data on meteorites, and I found actual stories in the 1800 that meteorites came, and the meteorites had little information on it that could be considered as being alive.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you trigger that?
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I triggered it.
Mm-hmm. In your novel.
In my novel.
Did you have some? Was that part of your profession too? I mean, watching about meteorites so they won't hit any of the planes. Was that related to that, or not really?
Not really, because until lately, like this one here a month ago,
the one that landed in Russia.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, it was very
paper.
Yeah,
what
very
meteors damaging shock waves. In the newspaper, to remind the viewers, about a month ago, there were a very large meteor that crashed somewhere in Russia.
Right. So I mean, this
actually hurt a lot of people.
Right. Exactly. And this happened at a certain time, and they're claiming that more and more will happen because of the Earth the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where I ended up saying, well, this is just supports what I was sci-fiing with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I take certain situations that I can say, oh, this is how I make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
How I made it happen, because it can be real.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a question of why. And we have a situation where the meteorites became activated by some, and I use the word Holocaust,
mm-hmm.
of brightness, and it started the process of making these little things work, and they
mm-hmm.
became human. Okay.
What became human?
The meteorites were inside these little, this is imaginary thing,
Mm-hmm.
they had little seeds in there.
Mm-hmm.
And what aggravated the seeds was a holocaust of brightness,
mm-hmm.
heat.
Which is also heat.
Right. Exactly.
Agitated them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it became, a society became out of that.
Oh, so you think meteorites hit the Earth and caused and maybe had seeds in them, and they
Yep.
caused, when they hit the earth, the radiation and the friction.
Not right away.
Not right away, but
It
started something, a chain of reaction.
Right. What happened was
That's interesting.
it became...
Maybe it's true.
Yeah, well, exactly. Around 1800, that became part of, and by the way, it was in New Mexico or
Right.
one of those areas. It's strange how that is connected sometimes too, because that's where the A-bomb is and stuff like that. So who knows what the real stories are. But I used that as an input later on to make the system work. Now, there are two forms of life at that point. One is the meteorite life, and then normal life. Meteorite life people, because of the destruction that they had to go through, became very sensitive to light. So they could not live in light. That's how this...
So they live underground, like with the time machine?
No, they live in the ground, and they live during the night.
Okay.
And during the day, they're hidden.
So it's almost like that movie, The Body Snatchers.
Something like that.
Something like that,
Exactly.
or Spawn.
Yep.
Read a little bit so we have a little better feeling for what you're talking about. So read a couple parts of your book.
I could do a prologue, but let me go through, I'll just go through the start of. Life on Earth changed, but who could have thought there would be any transformation? The few inhabitants that saw the events considered everything a devilish act. In the meantime, the endless pit of sand began increasing. Everybody knew this mixture sand was harmless, and they would never thought that this event came from another planet. So in other words, people say, this is nothing, we're not really interested in it. And it just, one person would wander near the increasing sight that glowed, fearing that maybe demons came and had landed. So they just walked away. They didn't want to know that. And that's how the story starts. The concept of it, of all 4 novels, they just keep going based on that. And that's how it's very important. 1880 is years pass in harmony in the land of total isolation until one lonely evening, July 1880, another obstruction occurred, and it started with a wild storm force that intensified the land. In other words, there was something that created this mixture to create these people that nobody can see.
So I just reading today about Stephen Hawking and his theories. And did you by any chance read A Brief for History of Time? Did you follow any of his stuff?
No. No. See, what I try to do is, there's so many different variations, and I did this for one reason. There's so many variations of when somebody comes up with a good sci-fi story, but a lot of them become a mixture. I wanted to be original for my own creation of how to go through this. How does mankind that we are survive and never see the other people?
So what's your take on that?
So the thing is that...
Are we giving away the secret?
No, the secret is that we are human people. What do? We love the sun, okay? We enjoy it. And we like the night. We go to sleep. We never think about that the night is day. for someone else that are enjoying it, and they come out and walk around. You never see them because you're sleeping.
Okay.
So that's the concept that you're working with.
Okay.
It's a little
A
different,
parallel universe.
sort of.
Did you ever watch Star Trek where they
Oh,
have
yeah.
parallel universe episodes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say that's your book is a little bit like that, following a little bit like that? In some ways?
In some ways, but I went deeper into it.
But the concept of parallel universe is what you're talking about in
Right.
the novels.
Right.
So-
And, what it comes down to, the people, the night people, I gave them a name, they live very difficult and are different because what they do is they enjoy life and they're happy doing working the mines, as an example. That's all they do. And they grow old, but they don't pass away.
Okay. So let me ask you, you brought some props.
Right.
We have here the spacecraft.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that, why you brought that.
Well, when we were young, and the boys and myself, we were really into space. If you look at the 60s and the 70s, early 70s, that's all it was about, TV.
Going into space, spaceships.
Right, right. I forgot what some of the names were, but we used to watch them all the time.
The thing from outer space.
Right, yeah, all the bad guys and so forth. So we enjoyed it. And when I saw that, I said, this is perfect, because that's really what we were all about. The kids loved it. They liked the space. I like the space, and we talk about it. How can that happen?
My favorite Martian.
Right, exactly. Oh, yeah.
Well, that would fit.
Yeah, that would
the
fit
other
too.
people's.
Yep,
When
exactly.
you're not looking, the antenna come out.
Right.
What about this board right here? This
Well, the board is, it's a game that I have. It's an original game. It's all about you can see it's the Earth, and it has all kinds of
That's the Earth or the
instruction.
moon?
This is the Earth. I think.
That's the Earth? That's the
Let's see,
moon.
let's see.
No, that's the moon.
Let me take a look.
That's the moon.
Yep. But you can see all the different areas that make that up of that time. So it shows
Let's see what
space.
we have here. Go on, yeah. No entry zone, espionage, successful launch.
Right.
Also, it's all about space travel.
Right.
Moon landing, space station, rendezvous in space,
Right.
everything related to space.
Space, exactly.
Uh-huh.
And what it is, you can see, they even show the spacemen,
Mm-hmm.
They show everything here, and they made a game out of it, but it was more realistic.
When you were playing it in those days, you felt
Right,
it's really just like when I watched the first Star Trek movies, I thought like, oh, we're going to space.
exactly.
It was so realistic at that time.
Yep, yeah,
And here you have the dark side of the moon.
exactly. Yeah.
So, tell us about now. You also, as an author, you're on Author's Den. Tell me about, and this is actually a photo of Joe on a webpage, Author's Den, a place that authors hang out. Tell me about your experience in Author. What is Author's Den? Why are you there? What's your experience?
I started that. I'm probably one of the original people that.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
I've been in it.
I'm
I'm
not
a
going to give
character.
away your age. Well, you can't be older than younger than the internet.
Well, right. What it is, I'm a permanent. If you look up my date, I'm a permanent member. What do they call it? A character, not character, but when I started, it was free, and I've been using it ever since. Then they said, well, we're going to give you a one-time deal. If you want to stay in forever, you have to pay X amount of money, one time only. I said, fine. So I did that. Never have to do anything.
One-time fee.
One-time fee.
Uh-huh.
So to me,
So what is Author's Den?
it's a combination. You're in control. In other words, all my stories, all my novels, all my short stories, everything I put there are items about how to write.
So what, do you have a blog there, a web page?
No, I just have
An author page.
just an author page. I could put everything in there. I could put in news. I could put in accomplishments. I can give ideas.
And people follow you?
Yes.
Okay. And how many people do you have following you?
I would say in a week, and I track this, in a week I have between 300 to 500 hits.
On your web page?
On my web page.
Uh-huh. That's a week.
A week, and that's
and are they writing anything, reviews or comments?
Sometimes.
Or
Sometimes.
So, do you remember any of the comments you have about your show?
They just say, "Well, this is good work, and keep up the good work." And
so, what have people said about your book, anyways, in general?
In general,
reviews.
Well, I have a combination since I haven't not a lot of sci-fi input. In other words, I haven't got any reports about the sci-fi, but that doesn't prevent me from continuing.
Well, what about other works? I know you have done other works.
Right.
What other works have you done, and what have you heard about that? You actually won some awards.
Right.
Can you mention that?
The awards were related to, depending on how you want to look at that, but I always joined a lot of contests, so the rewards would be for short stories or long stories, and if it was worthy of it, I would. You wouldn't get any money or anything, just knowledge that, the
acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement, exactly. That way, I could use that as a backup to.
So, what would be like one of the more famous or prestigious awards, or name one that you did win? I know it's written in your bio, but do you remember?
I don't recall.
So, what have people? Did anybody write you a letter about what you have written? Here, publication credits.
Right.
Like a Father, published in Poland, Illustrated Magazine, January 1978, American edition, issued by the Polish Interpress Agency, Warsaw, Poland.
Yeah, and that gave me a nice prize of Polish. In fact, I could have brought it in. I forgot about that. That was the best one because I wrote about my father and what happened to him. But originally, what happened to him, that when I wrote, is what I knew. As later on in life, I found out there wasn't accurate, but it was accurate at the time.
So here you have The Door to Nowhere, won 4th place, Editor's Preference Award of Excellence.
Right. Those were short stories.
We have one, Table Number 18, appeared in Tapestry of Words, 1993, won the Accomplishment of Merit Award.
Right. And that was like about a wedding. I write things as I see them and then publish them.
And here you have Nature's Fury, received the Editor's Preference Award for Excellence.
Right.
Got quite a few here.
Yep. See, I started with short stories, and from that I jumped into getting more information, bigger stories.
So just tell me what people have found or said about your book, or in conversations. Have you met people who read your books?
Yeah.
What did they say
about
your ideas?
The idea is some of the questions are, how did you come up with this? I mean, what?
It's really original.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And he says, well, I never even thought about that. I says, well, one of the things is that I try to use technology. Even now, technology is a positive way of writing sci-fi, because that's what life is. It's not what's generic. In other words, I try not to be generic because that's who I am.
So read us another short piece, because we're going to be finishing in a couple minutes.
Okay.
Let's get that in. And while you're looking for that, I'm just going to mention what your favorite phrase is. You like the phrase Joseph Conrad, illusion, words, as is well known, are great foes of reality. I love that.
Yeah. I have one thing here that I want to read.
Go ahead.
Anyone with a dream can envision that science and technology of the future would someday be duplicate visual lenses. Okay? More important, understanding what this vision attained. Work has to find the source behind the glow.
Mm-hmm.
This indicates that life was always there, but now for the first time, man was able to categorize and uncover the true meaning by creating lenses, digging side by side through the mountains of the past. It will be possible to discover our future.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
Deep.
Very poetic.
Yes. That's what my writing
Is like.
is like.
And if somebody wanted to have a look at your books, your e-books, they'd
Yep.
have to go to Amazon.com
Yep.
and just look up Joe
Joe
Vojt,
Vojt.
V-O-J-T.
Yep. And it's there.
Get there.
It's a free read, 10 pages or whatever, depending on how it is. All of them.
Or you can read the first 10 pages as
Up
a
to it.
look
It's
into
up
the
here.
book.
Yep.
Mhm.
And
And then
by the way,
decide if you wanna get it.
all my books, I did this on purpose.
Mhm.
They're all 99 cents.
That's okay. How many, well, they're e-books, you know,
Right.
and there's 300 million people in America, you know,
Right.
I think.
Right.
How many books did you write altogether?
Right now, I've got 7 in.
You have 7 books. Are they
7.
all science fiction books?
No, the combination that I have spiritual. In fact, I don't know if I did it.
Well, that's
here.
okay. You
Yeah,
have the
here.
titles? Okay.
You got prophecies, we got that. The End of Life, a
The
short
prophecies
story.
are 4 books.
Right.
Okay.
Only 3 are out.
3 are out.
Right. And then the End of Life, a short story collection, memoir, okay, which is a story that I wrote because we always go to the same place for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we go on, this is in Vermont,
Mm-hmm.
I write something continuously.
Mm.
And then I finally put it into the ebook.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a memoir. Every time it's specific.
Okay.
The living life of our soul is some things that are very interesting if you ever want to find out what your brain or what my brain thinks. So,
Okay.
okay, that's another one.
A memoir.
And the Freedom Trail Mystery. And what that is a story of actually German and Polish background. What I did was the Germans from a labor camp were 150 of them had to go to Vermont. Hitler brought them over there to do some things in the lab.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the people had no choice.
Mm-hmm.
They had to work in the lab,
Mm-hmm.
and I won't tell you why.
And that's in Vermont.
Right.
Okay, he snuck them in here. Okay.
Right. Stuck them in.
Very quickly, though, because we have to end. From all your experience in life, and I know your readers will know from your next book a lot about your past experiences and what you've been through. What advice or what life lesson do you have to partake with everybody? You mentioned it before the show, so if you can say that again.
Well, the thing is that
What you think is the most important thing in life?
to be yourself.
I've heard that before.
Right.
But it must be true.
Must be true. And if you have the desire to do something, don't give it up. Just
See that God heard you,
right.
the thunder,
Thunder.
and he's agreeing with that.
Exactly.
Well, Joe, that's great. Thank you for being a guest on.
I really
Meet the
appreciate
Author.
it.
Thank you.